This is Doug Meyer from Mountain Cat Guitars, and welcome to the Mountain Cat Guitars podcast. Mountain Cat Guitars is a business that I opened about 8 years ago here in Suffern, New York, which is a little north of New York City. And we are a by-appointment only boutique and vintage guitar business. And I've been in the guitar business for about 25 years. I worked at 2 guitar shops in New York City, and then I moved here to start this business. And now we're starting a podcast because we love podcasts and we love guitars, so we are naturally going to make a guitar podcast. Today, we have a really good friend of mine, Jeff Kadlic, came down from Saratoga, New York, which is a couple hours upstate New York from us. And he has a company called Champtone Guitars, and he makes amazing guitars. I've always loved his guitars. And about 2 years ago, we had the idea to come up with a model to work on together. We had the idea to come up with a handmade semi-acoustic hollow body guitar, kind of like a Gretsch 6120 meets an ES 175, but currently made. And Jeff has worked on that for 2 years, did a prototype, and finally they are available. We have 2 of them with us. We have the prototype and we have the actual first production guitar, and we talked about that, and we talked about vintage guitars and how Jeff got started in this business, and he's done a lot of cool stuff in the guitar business, and we're really psyched to have our first podcast be with Jeff. We have a lot of other people scheduled, some really cool people, and we're really excited to have a podcast that talks about this kind of stuff, so hopefully you were interested in it. And to learn more about us, please visit us at mountaincatguitars.com, and we hope you enjoy the podcast. This is the Mountain Cat Guitars podcast. Guitars are great. Hi, this is Doug Meyer from Mountain Cat Guitars, and this is the Mountain Cat Guitars podcast. This is actually our first podcast, although we did 2 practice ones, but they weren't quite awesome because of alcohol usage by Daniel Perry, who's standing right there. And I have Jeff Kadlic with us, who builds Champtone Guitars and Kadlic Guitars, and he's from Saratoga, New York, and he drove down this morning, which was very cool, and I've known Jeff for a long time. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And we are here in the lounge in downtown Suffern, New York, which is where I live and where Mountain Cat Guitars is, which is about a mile from here, but this is a groovy rehearsal spot and hangout place that we have in Suffern. It's my friend Mike's place, and it's really groovy. And Mike is right there, so we don't have to speak about him as if he's not here. And let's talk about your guitars.
Yeah.
How long have you been building these guitars?
I've been building since about right around 2010, so, going on 8 years.
And what were you doing before that?
Before that, I was working at a small sound design company. We designed large format sound systems for like special events and corporate events.
Oh, cool. Because you're an audio guy too.
Yeah, I have a little background in audio and recording, and that was an interesting gig. I did that for I guess about 3.5, 4 years.
Where was that? Up by you?
It was in Saugerties. I'm from Saugerties,
right.
New York originally, and after working down the road in New York for about 7 years, 6, 7 years, my wife and I moved back to Saugerties in like 2005, shortly after we got married, and that's how I ended up there. And I was still working freelance.
So your first shop was in Saugerties?
My first shop was, excuse me, was in Saugerties. Like a lot of guys in the basement of my house.
Right, which is right outside of Woodstock, for those of you who don't know where Saugerties, New York is. But everyone around here knows, but some people who aren't from New York, Saugerties is really where the band's house was, where Big Pink was actually in Saugerties. Everyone thinks it was in Woodstock. It was in Saugerties. I actually stayed there recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for my 50th birthday, my wife
that's so cool.
got us a weekend in Big Pink, and a whole bunch of our friends went there, and it was pretty amazing. You can rent it.
I didn't know that.
It's so cool.
Excuse me. There's a lot of cool things like that in the area, like that I've even missed out on a bunch of things like over the years that just, I guess, from being local and just not
right. Yeah, like
writing it off a little bit. But there's that's one of them. And
it's somewhat recent. It's been owned by different people over the years, but the people who own it now actually rent it.
That's cool.
It was and it's just the way it was back then. Like some of it's been redone, so it's old. stoves and stuff. But
Yeah.
we were staying. Me and my wife were staying in what was Levon's room, which was upstairs, and our friend was staying in Rick Danko's room. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you're into the the band. And
yeah,
stuff
you
like
can
that,
see all
so-
those pictures. It's right in that basement. Like you can see, and the typewriter that by the window where Dylan would always be sitting in those pictures was still there.
Yeah.
You're like, and I love that record. I'm a
Yeah,
fan.
there's. I mean, you can't escape it if
That whole area.
there's
like-
a very strong undercurrent of a lot of great American music for sure.
Yeah, and there's still cool people up there, but the people who own the place were really cool. I hope I'm not screwing them up by telling everybody that it's for rent, but I assume that they don't mind people knowing. But
Have you ever? I'm sorry. Have you ever been to Levon's?
yeah, I saw a couple of them.
Yeah,
I was
that's
lucky
a fun
enough
thing
to.
do.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to catch a couple of them before he died. I know they're still doing them, but I caught Kevin Bacon, who was real cool,
Mm-hmm.
and Donald Fagen would always be there
Sure. Yeah.
because he lived down the road from our
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
I could never figure out why he was always there, but it turns out he lived near there. And I saw someone else. I can't remember who. I'm blanking out. But yeah, what a cool vibe that was.
Yeah, my brother did. He's a well driller. He put the well in
At the house.
at Donald Fagen's house. Yeah. So anyhow.
Yeah, those cats all live up there.
Mhm.
Like that. I was gonna live when originally my plan for Mountain Cat was Woodstock,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was living in New York City, and I worked in guitar shops in New York City. You know that because I met you there.
Yep.
And my original idea was to move it up to Woodstock, own my own business in Woodstock, and bounce back and forth to New York City and do all that.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of didn't work out that way. And then we found Suffern, which is like right in the middle. It's actually close to the city.
It's a great location. It's funny that you live here now, and all the time that I worked in the city, it's just where I lived.
Right. Yeah, that happened with a couple
So-
of my friends.
so-
And I grew up near here. I grew up maybe 10 miles from here.
Right. Okay. So yeah.
So I grew up, this is Rockland County. For anyone who doesn't know where Suffern is, it's right. It's like 26 miles outside of New York City, but it's called Rockland County, which is like just at the end of this block is New Jersey, which is weird. This is New York, but that's New Jersey right there. So it's a kind of interesting place, and Westchester's across the water, but no one knows about Rockland. It's like this thing that no one really knows about.
It's been a while. I forget. So was there is there no tax on clothes in New Jersey or something? Like
Right.
That?
Or
Yeah. So everybody goes shopping on Saturday.
and gas is cheaper, and you can't pump it yourself.
Yeah, I don't like that. Still, I still don't. I want to be able to pump my own gas.
Yeah, see, I think it's cool what they fund.
I don't like it.
Especially on a day like today, it's freezing. I don't need to go out and do that. But it's also cheaper, and they pump it for you, so it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
And it's right at the end of the
I'll
block.
I'll go with you on that.
Yeah, it's some kind of tax thing. So anyway, so I met Jeff years ago. Anyway, I ran 2 guitar shops in New York City where I was the manager. I worked there and played in bands. And I met Jeff when I was working at Chelsea Guitars, which is my favorite guitar shop in New York City. And Daniel, who's behind the camera right there, started working there when he was 13 or so. And a lot of our friends worked there, and Danny, who owns the place, is an awesome dude. So I worked there for years and years. That's where I learned a lot of guitar stuff. And I met Jeff there, but I wasn't doing boutique guitar stuff yet. That was all vintage stuff. And I didn't have Mountain Cat yet. So when I started doing Mountain Cat, we met at the Brooklyn Guitar Show, which went for a couple of years, which was really fun.
Yeah, that was a good.
We were just talking about that because Daniel would help me at the Brooklyn Guitar Show. That was
Yeah.
so much fun. It's a shame that didn't continue. I think they were like, it was twice a year. It went for a couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like I did it at least maybe 3 years. I'm sure. I know it was. It felt like twice a year was kind of a lot for me as a builder.
Yeah, it was coming up really fast, but it was
But
it was a
fun
casual show anyway.
Yeah.
It was in the Brooklyn Bowl, so you'd drink and
Yeah.
just bullshit with guys you just haven't seen in a while. It wasn't really such a business show. It was
Yeah,
more like a
it
hang.
was fun. I mean, yeah, it was the kind of thing like where you invite people to stop by. It was
Yeah.
free to get in, right?
It was free to get in, and the tables were so cheap.
Yeah.
So it
free
wasn't
to
like a
get in.
big to do. You didn't bring that much stuff because the tables were small. So like, it was just fun. All my friends were
Yeah.
there, and you'd see. That was what's fun about the guitar shows years ago is you would just see your friend, see guys you don't see normally.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It was a great opportunity to just invite people to come by and just
Right.
that you don't get the chance.
Yeah, a
to
lot
see
of
all the
builders I
time.
work with now I met at that show.
Same here. I that's that was kind of a unique show. I felt because wasn't like full on trade show.
Yeah, it was
where
more
there's
like
that,
hang
it
out. And if you
wasn't-
want to buy a guitar, I guess we could do that. You
Right.
know?
It's-
It
but it's
wasn't like
also-
gotta sell, because it's when you're paying thousands of dollars for the table, and it was also a 1-day show, so there was no hotels involved. You just went home after.
Right.
When we did Philly, we had to get like 3 nights of hotels and all this stuff. So you really kind of want to sell something before it's over.
Yeah, but I think that,
or you're gonna
that's
get
kind of
broke on the thing.
What it
yeah.
had going for it as well is that it wasn't a straight up like vintage show,
Yeah.
which can be kind of weird to me. But
Yeah, the
those shows
show
are-
changes. I don't do them much. I used to do them more. I think it's more laziness than anything, but
Right.
yeah. I used to love to go to Philly, and every time Philly comes up, I'm like, oh, I gotta go, and then don't. But I'm stuck here. I have stuff doing here, so like,
Well,
really-
yeah, your shop.
yeah, so like to pack up all your stuff and go do a show. I haven't exhibited a show in a long time, and I keep going. Oh, I should do a show here or there, but I may come up to your friend Saratoga show.
Yeah, Matt from Saratoga Guitar. Yeah, he has a show every April, and it's right on Broadway in Saratoga.
So that's by sooner, right?
Yeah.
The way time goes.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a nice show. It's in a great location near everything.
He's a cool guy.
And it's a fun.
He has a nice little shop. We were in Saratoga. And we were like, oh, well, this place is awesome.
Yeah.
He always has nice stuff.
Yeah. Mm.
So why don't we talk about your guitars?
Yeah. We. Well, which? What do
We're
you
kind
want
of
to know?
staring at him. Well, the backstory is, I met Jeff and he was making mostly solid body guitars, which they were very similar to 2 other builders that I was already carrying, and I tried to not have that many of the same type of guitars. And I told both of those builders I wouldn't take any other, say, Telly style guitars, and Jeff had amazing Telly style guitars. So, so I was like, wow, this really sucks. And came up to the shop, I was like, wow, these guys' guitars are amazing. I would love to carry them, but I promised these 2 other fellows I wouldn't carry more Telly type things. I think that if I remember correctly, I said, like, let's work on a guitar together and come up with something, which turned into what is now the Grand Electric. Which is that the way you remember it?
That's kind of it. We I guess we kind of reconnected at the New York Amp Show. That was maybe
right.
the last one.
The last time I went to the amp
the
show.
last one,
right.
I think it was the last one he did in New York.
Right.
So that was cool. It was great
Right.
to see you there.
I kept playing your guitars, going, God, these are so good.
And,
I want these in my shop. Like, what can we do about this?
So that was cool.
That's right. I forgot about that amp show.
And yeah, we had, I had been wanting to do an archtop guitar for a while, and we started talking about it, and I shared the idea with you, and then you were, we just kind of bounced some ideas off each other, and you thought it would, be something that could probably fly and find a place in the
It was
market.
also something I don't see anybody else building still. I mean, I've looked around. I'm sure somebody else builds, we didn't invent it. But, I don't see anybody doing what's a handmade, kind of Gretsch 6120 meets an ES 175 that really feels like an old guitar done in nitro with all the proper stuff that's handmade that's not $20,000.
Yeah, it's a it's not an easy guitar to make. It wasn't for me.
It was easy for me. I just had to wait a long time.
So we got talking about it. It took me a while to wrap my head around the process and
But we should look. You can't see these things right now, so why don't we
the,
grab? Because the prototype's right there, and this is the real one.
that one you just took delivery of.
Yep. So this is the thing. Can you see this? And that is the prototype of this. I mean, they're only slightly different, really.
Yeah. But it's much different animal, obviously, than a solid body.
It's not a Telecaster,
It's not a telly, and but it took a long time to get into the nuts and bolts of what those make, and I'm still learning. I think any guitar maker would tell you that there's never a shortage of things to learn about.
No,
guitar
this is
making.
a totally different thing than making a Les Paul or Not that this is, I'm sure those are very hard to make, but, I know people build them, but,
Yeah.
this is different. This is a lot of building stuff. Just the fact that it doesn't collapse at all, which
Yeah.
old Gretches do
Hopefully it
anyway.
won't.
Right, but a lot of those kind of guitars do collapse,
Yeah, so I've over the past, I don't know how many years, 5 years or so, I've just looked and examined and.
You came down to my house a bunch of times and measured things,
Yeah, I got my hands on as many, old arch tops as I could to just understand, what makes them what they are and possibly, what I would bring to the table in making a guitar like that. So, you had a great collection of old arch tops and
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff.
Gibsons and some Gretches.
Well, what I really thought, that people don't make, most of the guitars like this now are made overseas.
Yeah.
And they're made in one of those couple of factories, and they're nice. They're
Yeah, they
inexpensive. You can get those. The Epiphone Joe passes. Those are cool. They're fine. It's not that thing. But for not a lot of money, you can get that. That like the new Gibson guitars like that. Like if you're gonna get a new Birdland or.
It's
I've
probably
had a bunch of
expensive.
those come. They're super expensive, and it's not like the old thing. It's like, but when you play old ones, you're like, wow, your head wants to explode. You're
Yeah,
like,
it's-
why is this so awesome? And the new one, I've played new, say, L5s.
Right.
They're not like old L5s, because they're not handmade, I don't think. Or even if they are, the guys who were making those guitars in the 40s and 50s probably had access to better stuff to make them from. They might have been better builders. I don't want to put down whoever's building them now.
Right.
But, they're just not the same. Like, it's very hard to build anything the same, but you did. You built a guitar that looks and feels and sounds like a guitar from the 40s.
Well, thank you. I think that the thing that I come across most often with guys when they're talking about, I guess was specifically arch tops, really applies to any guitar, I guess, is that, they just kind of, for whatever reason, if it's a production guitar, they just don't bond with it for some reason.
Right.
And that's kind of, I think that's what you're getting at earlier, and that's what I feel like there's a lot of great arch top guitars that are made that are, accessible to people price-wise, and I've owned some of them, but
Right.
but I just, for whatever reason, I just don't seem to bond with them.
Right, I've
for
bought
some-
new
for some
6120s,
reason.
I bought new everything. Because they
Yeah.
look right, they look like the real thing.
Yeah, they look
And you play
right.
them and you're like, they're cool, and then you play them at a gig or two, and then you're like, meh.
Somehow there's just, they don't have
Fine.
some kind
But then when
of-
you get an old one,
yeah.
it's just this thing, and no one knows why, and if we knew why, we wouldn't be here saying we don't know why.
Right.
Anyone
that's-
says they know why, tell us, because we don't know. They just,
Right, yeah, that's what
no
you're-
one
you're
knows,
chasing-
right.
That's what you're chasing.
Yeah,
So-
are they better because they're old? Are they better because they were played a lot? Did they get played a lot because they were better? It's the eternal
Right.
question I've had sat in guitar shops and had it every day for 8 hours a day, and I've come up with no answers.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think anybody else has. I mean, is it the wood was better? Is it the guys who built it was better? Was the planet better? Were they better people than we were? For whatever reason, you pick up some, and not all 50s guitars are amazing. You pick up some and they're duds.
Sure,
Because
sure.
everyone thinks every Les Paul burst sounds amazing, and they don't. But by and large, they do, and the ones, some of them are just magical, and you're like, wow, you can't hit a bad note on these things. And old Gretches are the perfect example. Because
Yeah,
new
they're
Gretches
kinda
don't
weird.
sound like old Gretches.
Yeah.
But they're better guitars, probably.
I think the newer guitar. Well, I mean, you can find obviously a great old 6120 for sure, but I think
They
modern-
always need work, though. You always have to
Sure,
refret
sure.
it. You usually have to neck set it. And then the
Yeah.
pickups go crazy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, they definitely need some wrangling, but the the finish of the new.
Oh yeah,
Gretsch
it's a way
guitars
better
are-
guitar. You
They're
don't see
very
crazy
tight.
dowels. But from what I gather, those guitars were made in Brooklyn. And from what I gather, the people who worked at Gretsch didn't particularly like the people who owned Gretsch guitars. They weren't particularly nice.
Yeah, I
And
don't
it was
know much
mostly
about
women,
that.
from what I gather, working in the 50s at that plant. I don't know why. It still wasn't a wartime, but
Right.
he wasn't particularly nice to them, supposedly.
Huh.
He was Adolf Gretsch, I believe. He was supposedly a stern fellow,
Could be.
and wanted those
Could
guitars
be.
made cheap. Maybe that's why, so that's why the backs come off. They were easy to put together and not hard to work on, but they were so super cool and so different than other guitars.
Yeah,
it wasn't a
without
Fender, it
doubt.
wasn't a Gibson, it was a Gretsch. Was completely its own thing.
Yeah.
You know, 6120, nothing was like a 6120 or a Roundup or any of those things. You know, like it's its own thing. Like people could use a Gretsch, like Neil Young could do that Gretsch thing.
Yeah.
You know, through a loud amp with a Gretsch, and it's not howling all over the place, it's making music.
Yeah, that's
You know,
super
like
cool.
most people can't do that, but the people who can do it, it's the coolest sound. That's why everybody tries to do it.
Yeah.
Or people
yeah.
take the Gretsch pickups out and slam them into Telecasters, and you know, now you can get TV Jones pickups that sound like old Gretsch pickups, but they still don't sound exactly like old Gretsch pickups.
Yeah, they're a little bit different.
They're like just not the same. Like a new PAF doesn't sound like an old PAF. Like why we don't know.
I've not spent enough time with like some of the original Ray Butts like Filtertron pickups.
Right.
I played plenty of guitars that have them,
but even the old Diarmans that came in the 6120s
those
first.
are my favorite.
Me too.
Those
That's
are
a shit.
Those are wonderful.
I still want a 6120 with those pickups. I have one with the Filtertrons, which are cool, but the Diarmans are the shit.
Yeah, they really are.
You know, and still, why do they sound different in a Gretsch than in a new Diarman?
Right.
You know, like why can't
yeah.
you just you can take one apart, you can see exactly how it's made.
Right.
It's some copper wrapped around some other shit thrown into a thing. You know.
Well, that's because those pickups are only made on a mountaintop by Wizard.
Right.
Full moonlight.
Or like what's the variable though? Because it's like you look at it, it's a magnet. Maybe the stuff in the magnet, it's a bunch of different metals, Alnico and all these different things. Maybe that comes from mines that no longer exist, and that was the magic ingredient. Or was the copper different? The plastic, like what's?
I'm not an expert with myself with pickups and materials, but I think that that's definitely one of the things. The materials have varied over the years.
I would think because you could open up a humbucker and see how it's made. You can make a humbucker, yourself. It's not that hard. My friend Cobra from Cobra Guitars or Carbonetti Guitars now, very cool place in Brooklyn. Check him out. First pickup he ever made sounded amazing. Oh my god! It's you made a pickup. We put it in a guitar. We're like, best sounding pickup I've ever heard.
Yeah. I think
like how'd you make it? He's like, I don't know.
Did this. Like a lot of things, I think that get propagated in the business. There's especially with pickups, it seems like this mystique wants to. Or gets put forth about how pickups are made, and I do this, and this is that,
or there was
this,
no
this,
winding machine in the 50s. It wasn't computerized, so once they hit stop, it kept going for a while, and everyone kept going for longer periods.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I haven't seen a tremendous amount of evidence in my journey into how pickups are made, and like researching that. It's like, oh yeah, there's definitely like this X factor, and you need to have that, or you can't make a good pickup because at the time, right, like all those old great pickups that everyone seems to use as a benchmark were they were made by just I would assume general laborers, many of them. And this had nothing to do
I
with
think
gender,
they knew who
but
made
women.
some of them. Like the Fender ones, people would sign stuff, so they actually
There are always exceptions for sure.
Right, and there were those people who wound the pickups at Gibson, but they were just people going to a job, and it wasn't super specific. And also, those guitars weren't humbucker guitars, especially at the beginning. No one even wanted them.
Right, like
so it wasn't like these have to be perfect.
Right, the process of making, like, say, a single coil Telecaster pickup is not a complicated one.
No.
If you want to find the information, you can find it. You can probably do it.
Right, but then why do
but
then why do people like? I bought 2 sets of real PAFs when I was working at a guitar shop because I could get them. And you're like, okay, so you spend all this money and they hand them to you, and it looks like a set of Duncans. You're like, I just spent a lot of money on these. Christ, I hope they sound good, and they do sound different.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. I'm not saying that.
And I have 2 different sets, and they sound different from each other, even. Like they don't sound, but they do this certain thing.
Yeah.
Like this, they do this certain thing, and not that like patent numbers are the same pickups. But early Ttops will do the same thing. Like we just did a demo video for a '68 Black Beauty, that's someplace around here, which will be on our YouTube station, and it has early Ttops. And they sound kind of like, they do that same PAF thing where like the rhythm pickup sounds like the neck pickup just blew up slightly. And if you switch, it just sounds like it went, but it doesn't sound like you switch pickups. It just sounds like it fattened itself.
Sure.
In this amazing way. And early patent, we used to buy early Ttops because no one wanted them. Now people are hip to them, and you can still get them. But they're not cheap.
Is that 68 the custom you're just talking about? That was the first year they brought the Les Paul back when they changed it back
Right.
from the SG design.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
years, like when the first ones that came out, were the first one that came out was the Gold Top
Yeah. Yeah.
with P90s,
Right.
and then they came out with the Black Beauty, and they never really did a Sunburst until it was already like they did some weird ones in '72, some weird reissues, but they never did proper flame tops again until way later.
Right. Yeah, I'm not the most knowledgeable about Les Pauls, but it's kind of amazing to me that they stopped making those for a while in 1960.
No
right?
one bought them at the time. They were very expensive.
Yeah, I guess.
Compared to, I think it was $230 for a flame top, where a Strat I think was like 160.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference back then in money,
Yeah.
And they were really invented for jazz guitar players by a jazz guitar player.
Mm.
There was no cream.
Right.
There was none of that. So
Yeah, that's true.
they tried to give them to some blues guys, like it went to Muddy Waters and those cats, but Guitar Slim had a gold top, but really it was the flame tops that they wanted to do something with,
Yeah.
and it just didn't happen.
When I think early Les Paul, I think Freddie King.
Right,
for sure.
but he was probably given that guitar.
I would assume. Yeah.
Like they were trying to get people to say, oh, well, those guitars are cool, but it happened. It just happened much later. Clapton supposedly, when he went searching for his Les Paul, had the Freddie King record. Wanted a gold top.
Yeah.
You didn't want a flame top. You wanted a gold top.
Yeah, it's an interesting arc, right, with that instrument.
Yeah.
How obviously the British acts.
Yeah, picked up on all
going
this,
back.
but after the fact, they weren't even making it anymore. When and so I read that recently. That Clapton was looking for a P90 gold top and couldn't find one, and bought a flame top.
Oh, really?
But he wanted that Freddie King record sound. That was it.
Who could argue with the Blues Breakers record? But if you had the gold top, it might have sounded a little cooler.
It would have sounded different.
it sounds fantastic.
It's all that thing.
but I love P90,
It's hard to say. But imagine if he was playing a Telecaster on that album. But even Led Zeppelin 1, everyone always thought it was a Les Paul, and then you find out it's a Telecaster.
That's one of my favorite lines. That just
that changed
Tellies, too.
everything.
It's like, Jimmy Page helped sell millions of
Les Pauls while playing a Tele. Yeah, and we never knew that when we were kids. No one ever said that. When you got a little older, and there were guitar books and stuff like that. And, people would say, "Oh, that was a Telecaster," but never even saw a picture of him with a Telecaster at that point. They weren't. Well, you would see his current rock magazines.
Sure. Yeah.
I used to buy Circus magazine. They weren't old pictures. It was current pictures of him on stage with Les Paul.
Yeah.
So you never knew he even had another guitar. And his first Les Paul was a Black Beauty.
Yeah. There's a cool. I have this double disc.
Yeah, Royal Albert Hall.
No, it's called. It's a double disc compilation. I forget the label. It's a European label, and it's called "This Guitar Kills," and it's all the lion's share of studio sessions that he did pre-everything. Basically.
Yeah, Donovan.
When he was when he was a teenager. Do you remember Midnight Records?
Oh yeah.
On 23rd Street.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah, that was like my friend Chris and I, when I worked at SIR, I probably spent at the time, which would have been, late 90s.
Yeah, I was at Chelsea at that point.
I must have spent $100 a week in there.
Yeah.
Most of my paycheck.
I know. That's all I ever did in the city.
I was the weirdest record store, especially
the guy was weird.
Garagey.
What's weird is Chelsea Guitars was a record store before.
Oh, really?
It was interesting music, and there was still records up in the top. And they sold some instruments, but Timmy Sullivan, who worked there before I worked there, worked at Interesting Records, and it was sold to Les and Danny, who started Chelsea. He just stayed, so he had pictures from it, whether with records and
cool.
sheet music. It was like that kind of place.
Right.
And they made it Chelsea Guitars and made it guitars, but it was a record store sort of.
That's cool.
Or it's a music store, it had cheap, recorders, almost like what was the place, the Village Inn downtown.
The Village Inn, yep.
The guy used to charge you $1 to come in. That's a famous New York thing. They would charge you $1 to go in, even if he was there.
It's a record store, right?
No, it's a guitar shop. And
oh, was it?
but they had then it became now you can get sitars and stuff there.
Okay.
But it was there from the 70s. The New York Dolls would go there and buy guitars, and they had 6120s. They had nice stuff, but it was down in Brownstone, and he would charge $1 to come in. but if you bought something, he gave you the dollar towards that. So if
Right.
you bought some picks, like.
There you go.
But it was more like almost like a museum, and he was charging you a dollar. I
That's-
think it's still there.
That's a very old school New York thing.
Yeah, that was so many cool old school New York things, like Chelsea Guitars the way, and Chelsea's Guitars are still there. It's just not in the exact location it was when I worked there. It's like,
It's in a different storefront.
yeah, it's what was Chelsea is now Planet Donut. It's in the Chelsea Hotel in New York City. For those of you who don't know, which is on 23rd Street, and that's where Sid killed Nancy, and all these interesting things. And
Really?
Yeah, Dylan. Yeah, well, that's its big thing.
Oh, I didn't see.
People from all over the world
Missed
would go
out
like,
on that.
"Which room did Sid kill Nancy in?" And it was
Oh, wow.
it was a room that they got rid of because of.
Well, I took
But-
guitar lessons in that building from somebody that you recommended.
Oh,
to.
Mark Lonergan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that guy's amazing.
He was very cool. Yeah,
We
he-
all studied with him.
Yeah. He would get a little angry. or something.
Yeah, if you didn't practice, it wasn't like
you-
one of those things where he'd go like, "Okay," he'd be like, "No, play it now," but I didn't practice it. Play it now.
Yeah,
So like the night before, like the lesson, you'd be having anxiety attacks.
Yeah. He was one of those guys where
He was not having it.
if
Like,
you showed up unprepared, you'd get the like.
yeah, you weren't going to enjoy your next 45 minutes.
Not really. He'd be like, well, you're wasting my time.
Yeah, you're a total fuck up.
Bro, but wait a
You
minute.
make you feel like you're like the
I'm here to pay
you're
you,
a terrible
though.
human being.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pay you though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, everyone was like a little scared of him, and I'm still friends with him. Yeah, he's a fabulous guy. And he still lives there.
I remember he was. He's like a Fender nut, right?
He played G&L guitars
That's
since he'd been on tour. He had a couple of G&Ls. He's such an unbelievable guitar player.
He told me a story when he met Leo once, and I had a G&L Legacy at the time.
They're great.
Yeah, great guitar, and he really dug that. Obviously, he was playing G&Ls, but
Yeah, he was sponsored by G&Ls when he was on tour with a band, and he just always played them.
yeah.
But he wasn't one of those guys. Some guitar players aren't guys who just keep buying guitars. Like, he had the same guitars always. They suited
Yeah.
his purposes, and he was just a phenomenal guitar player. I met guitar players like that. Like, most guys are junkies and they buy them every day. God bless them. I'm
yeah.
one. Like, we're all one. But some cats you do meet. Like, I used to know professional guitar players who had like a Squire and something else.
Couple things.
And those work for them, and they're not obsessed with like getting more guitars.
I don't have a very large guitar collection. I mean, I have it's increased and decreased over the years, like they always do. But
Well, you always want new stuff. But guitar builders, I don't know too many guitar builders who have lots of guitars.
well, I mean, that's because we're we don't have the money.
I didn't want to say it. I wasn't going to say
I'd
that.
like to have
Right,
more,
exactly. Well, you're a guitar builder. Everything goes into building a guitar. So like
Yeah,
everything goes
it's
into getting
true.
a guitar line off the ground, which is why we're here.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
We should talk about probably your guitars. Well, there's a killer one right there. I had that in my shop for a minute.
Yes.
You're offset.
Here, we'll throw this into the frame, maybe.
Yeah, that is a
that's-
killer guitar. I
That's-
love this thing.
My take on the offset thing.
Yeah, like just a killing offset. Great
Um,
neck, unbelievable fender. You did the fenders, I assume.
I did, yeah. The
It's nitro.
Yep, nitro finish and
It's a beautiful finish.
thank you. Yeah, I call it blonde burst.
Yeah,
it's slightly burst.
This was an amazing guitar, or is an amazing guitar. It still exists. Wow, listen to that.
But yeah, it's one of the forever. I just didn't play any of my own guitars in any of my projects live, and people would always ask me like, "Why aren't you playing your own
Right.
guitars?"
Well, yeah, I guess
You
people
know,
feel differently about that.
And I just I kind of always had a hard time getting used to that.
See, I think it's cool, but like I remember
It
Chiho
is.
going like, "Should I play my own guitar?" I'd be like, "Yeah," and then he would go back and forth,
yeah,
whether it's
yeah.
cool or not.
So-
Like, are you being a tool by playing your own guitar?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where I stand with it, but that one.
That could go either way.
That one I kind of have had a really hard time letting go of. Because I don't have an offset myself.
This is just so. Is this flat ones?
I have flats on it. Yeah.
Flats on one of these guitars is dope.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, it's got one of the what are these things called? Maestries?
Yeah, it's a mastery vibrato setup. It's really nice parts.
Yeah, this guitar's great.
And yeah, that one I've kind of settled into having around. It's, of course.
Yeah, this with like a white Fender amp would be the shit.
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, you have a white Fender amp, right?
It's I don't.
Did.
I used to. I have a brown fender amp.
Right. I knew you had something cool like
I
that.
had this. I had a '62 Tremolux for a while.
Right, I have
which,
one of those.
which I loved. I wish I still had it, but you know, I mean, it wasn't that practical to have because.
Yeah, tops and bottoms.
It's a little big. I mean,
Yeah.
I just can't. You can't beat the look of it though. I mean, with the
I know.
tilt legs, it's like it's my favorite design. I mean, it's the
I
coolest
know.
looking thing there is.
I
you
have
know?
one still.
But
I can't get rid of it.
yeah, no, you shouldn't, and you shouldn't. But you know,
I don't use it.
yeah, I mean that was the thing. It was kind of like I had it, and if I still had a studio space, and I had a studio at my old house. I don't now, but recording studio. But I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten rid of it.
Right,
But,
that's why I keep it. Like I have room now because I live in a house.
Yeah, it's a great amp, but it wouldn't be my first call.
No,
to
because you
bring
can
out
go
a
to a
gig.
deluxe now. Like every gig I do now, I'm bringing a smaller amp to.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing amps with like gigs with like Princeton's.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you
it's-
play littler places, you turn them up louder, they sound good. You know, like you don't.
Well,
Yeah.
and right, and also the sound reinforcement in the last decade
Yeah.
or so has changed.
Yeah, even if you have
radically.
your own little PA, it sounds.
They sound
good.
really
Yeah, you used to
good.
need all the stage volume because the only thing that went through the PA was the vocal, and you couldn't hear that anyway.
Right.
All you heard was your drummer going blah blah
Yeah.
blah. You'll play these places in New York, and like you'd be lucky if you could hear anything.
Yeah. But no, I don't have the white amp anymore. But I do have I ended up with another '62 round face Super,
Right.
which in some ways I think
It's basically a Tremolux anyway. It's 210s, right?
it's 210s. Yep, a combo obviously, and I think the circuit might vary a little bit, but it definitely
Yeah, they don't sound exactly the same, but it's roughly the same idea.
different
it's like
tremolo design.
Right.
Both are cool, but I think I
that
think
brown
maybe-
white tremolo thing. That brah, brah, brah
Yeah,
thing.
it's such a great sound, but I think that's kind of like a bury me with that amp.
Yeah.
I think I ended up, I got rid of the white one, I got this, and it seems to have worked out, so I'm happy with it. It's like my main amp. I don't really even look for anything else now. I mean, I have a couple. I've got a Champ that I use a lot, and I have a custom made Tweed Super. And those are basically my amps. So yeah.
So let's talk about the Grand Electric again.
Yeah.
So keep looking at it. So this is mine, and that's the prototype.
Yep. Yeah. I'll
So, and you did not use the Champtone name on these guitars.
no, I didn't. And
I remember talking to you about that. When I
Okay.
saw the first one and said, "Oh, what does it say on the headstock?" Not realizing it was your last name.
yeah, and I've had that conversation with a lot of people.
Yeah, because Champtone is your company, so I was like, at first I was like, well, do you, is that going to take away from Champtone, or is it a whole nother line of guitars, or?
Yeah, well, I guess the short answer is that I feel like the Grand Electric is my first fully conceived guitar model.
Right, that's an offset
obviously,
guitar, right?
excuse me, it's a it's an archtop guitar, and I haven't reinvented the wheel, but there are a lot of design elements to it, that were my own decisions and are not quite exactly like any other archtop. So
And the idea was that these wouldn't feed back as much as a vintage
yeah, the bracing
thing like this feeds back like crazy, and that's why we don't all use them.
Yeah, the bracing was definitely something that I, played around with and will continue to play around with and experiment with, wood choices and just the general structure of the bracing. But
Acoustically, this one sounds amazing.
yeah, that one. I was talking with my friend Graham, who is a huge guitar nut. Graham Tishy, he lives up in Troy. He's a great player, he's an instructor, and just a fabulous musician and really great guy. He teaches at a place called the Troy Music Academy. I brought him that guitar, and I brought him the prototype, and that has rounds on it, and this other one has flats. And he was like, "Oh, I really," and he's like a kind of a diehard flat wound
Yeah, I mean, they
John-
sound great with flats. I just thought it'd be more accessible.
Yeah, well, he was really loving that. He was like, "Oh, man,
Right,
this
so
is
I
like
go
a
back
set-
and forth. I've had guitars where I've switched them back and forth like 6 times.
Yeah,
You're
sure,
like,
sure.
oh, flats are the shit on this. And then you're like, but now I want rounds.
Yeah, but as you mentioned there, the strumming, it does, and that's how
Yeah,
I
this
felt
one-
when I played it
Right,
at
and
first.
like old 175s do that sometimes. You pick them up and you're like, oh my god, you can just strum this. But if you plug it in, it just like,
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Can't use this. You know, 330s do it. You know, how many 330s we bought when we were kids because they were cheaper. We thought they were the same thing as 335s. We didn't
Yeah.
know. You know, we knew they had
Yeah,
90s.
sure.
But we didn't know they didn't have center blocks.
Right.
Fuck did we know? There was no like information. You know, so like you're like, oh, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's cool, and it's got P90s. Those are cool. And you plug it in, and it will go stuff socks in it. Really, so people used to
Sure,
tell you that.
sure, yeah.
So we're stuffing socks in fucking guitars, and it didn't help. Now you got your socks in there. It's not easy to get out of there.
What's his name? I think Billy Duffy from the Cult, like he did something like that with his White Falcon. He like
Put socks in it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's I think he has a signature model now. But anyway, but getting back to the name choice,
Sorry
so
about
my designer and you know, all my wife and all the good people that I look to for advice said that yeah, you should probably keep your logo, you know, keep Champtone on there. But
I think I
just-
said that too.
yeah, you said that, and I see the point in it, but I ultimately I felt like I just wanted to have my name on this
Yeah,
guitar.
I
And,
mean-
and the name Champtone, which I have to say, like over the years, I've got nothing but like great like comments about like everybody seems to love that name and say like, oh, it just sounds like a name that's been around for like 50,
Right, it sounds like what it's
50
supposed to
years.
sound like.
But I think that it kind of lends itself to the solid bodies somehow for me a little bit better.
Well, now that now that I see where it's coming from, I get it.
yeah,
You know, like, but
yeah.
at first I was like, well, why wouldn't you? If someone loves this guitar, wouldn't they say, oh, well, what else do you build? You know,
Sure.
they wouldn't put Champtone and Kadlic together.
Right.
But I don't see why not. You know, like
Right. Well, my
because there was other Gibson models. You know, there was
Sure,
other Gibson
sure.
names even. There was Recording King, and there was Kalamazoo. I think
That's
there was
true.
even another one.
That's true. So my attempt to tie them in is just with the crown. It's part of the Champtone logo and the Kadlic
Oh, that's
logo.
true.
So that's for now, and we'll see. You know what else I might come
So
up
these
with.
are like brand new things. This is the first actual one,
yeah.
and I think I might have sold it to a buddy of mine yesterday.
Oh, alright.
I said we need it for a podcast, so it may be on its way out anyway.
Okay.
In which case, it brings us to how long would it take one to get one of these guitars?
well-
Assuming I don't have one in stock, which I don't think I do.
Well, I'm gonna have another one coming out. I got that black one.
but if
coming
someone
out soon.
wanted to call you, like, you know, and say I want one, but I want one with 3 P90s and or you know anything, I want one with
Sure.
4 knobs. So how long would it take to get one if someone called today and wanted to order one of these guitars?
Yeah, the turnaround time is going to be 5 to 6 months is what it takes me with everything going on in the shop to get a guitar out. A lot of times I can get it done a little bit sooner than that. Yeah, they're you know, with these instruments, I'm doing everything, you know, in the shop. We're cutting the pearl, I'm doing the finish. It's you
The
know,
Pro work is beautiful.
Thank you. And doing all the inlay work, and it's
And the flame maple is beautiful. This is laminated.
yes, yeah. For that's one of the choices for the guitar.
Could you make a solid top version?
No, I'm not really up to carved tops. Although I mean, it's on the project board. You know,
Right.
I've got
Yeah, for this project, for 6120 type
Yeah.
ES175 things, it wouldn't be a solid top vibe, but a solid top version of it might be cool.
Yeah. Oh no.
It wouldn't sound the same, but-
I mean that kind of brings me to the.
Because there weren't even Johnny Smiths both ways. There's Johnny Smiths that are laminated, there's Johnny Smiths that are solid. I think
No,
that
I'm not. I know.
there's a few models that were both.
He had a Gibson model, right?
Yeah.
Or was it Epiphone?
It was a Gibson Johnny Smith for sure, and I think he had an Epiphone too. But one of the
know-
models, I remember there being a solid top. Oh, you know what I think it is? A Trini Lopez.
Okay.
Or something like that. I remember someone asking me at Chelsea, and I didn't know, you know, like, and someone's like, "Oh, it's both." I was like, "It's both." I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely exist as a solid top. I mean, you know, I've got the I've got the materials and then all the tools and everything in the shop. It's just about getting around to
I would think it'd be harder to make a ply top.
the well the there's definitely some things that go along with making a ply top that are a little tricky, but basically it's
Right,
you
but you have to make
you have to
plies.
laminate it. And there are things that can go wrong with that, but it's basically they're laminated ply and you glue them up on a vacuum press and then they
You still have to shape them and carve them, though, right?
no the ply and this goes back many years with archtop guitar construction. I think you can find like laminate tops probably in the mid 40s, like
Oh yeah.
maybe even a little earlier.
Yeah, those
maybe-
like Radio Kings and all
maybe
that
a little,
stuff was
little later.
more
Yeah, I
laminated.
mean it's like earlier than one might think. It's,
Right.
Like oh wow, but basically the process would be that they would create a form or carve a form, a pattern,
Right.
and then the whatever your ply construction technique or is going to be, that material is placed on that pattern,
Oh, so it just
and
does it.
it's pulled into you have a vacuum on top of it, or it's like a membrane. It just pulls it down, and then it cures the glue, and then that's your form. That's
Oh, so it comes out that way. You don't carve it to
no
do that. It just
no.
It kind of smushes it into place.
Yeah. Because
Interesting.
Because
I didn't never knew that.
the plies themselves are about 20 thousandths of an inch
Do they
thick.
get them like warm, or how are they pliable?
They're at that thickness. They're
They're smushy.
they're very malleable. They
Oh.
move around, and then when you apply glue, obviously glue has water in it.
Right.
They become even more flexible. So
Oh.
so they're
I never knew any of that. See, this could be educational, folks. If you want to make a guitar,
So yeah,
that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's kind of the 1, 2, 3s of ply.
Because a lot of times the ply
Pleats.
guitars sound better.
Yeah, I mean, it
Solid
depends.
tops one tends to have more bottom, but a lot of guitars when we were young, like you didn't really even know the difference that they were solid. You didn't
Sure.
know anything when we were young. We realized,
Sure.
we worked at guitar shops, but all you had was the little Gruen book, and
Right.
you ran your whole business out of that. Like
Right.
ours, one at Chelsea was like taped together. It was missing pages. Like we lived out of it because it was the only place to get a serial
Yeah.
number.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How did you date a guitar? Where's the Gruen book?
Right.
It's that.
Sure.
And not everything in there was 100% right, but it was a small
Yeah.
book. It didn't and it had information on every single guitar.
Right.
So it wasn't telling you certain things. Like so we had so many misconceptions about guitars, or just not enough information, like ply tops. And I remember the first guitar I sold.
Well, here's another one I'll throw at you too. Is that there are some guitars that have solid tops that are pressed.
right, pressed solid top. Right.
They're not as common, but they're out there.
Right.
So,
Well, there's like the late '60s Gibson's guitars that have Brazilian rosewood sides, but they're laminated.
wow,
Like the Gibson Heritage Acoustics from this late '60s.
really.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Laminate sides.
Laminate
Wow.
Brazilian rosewood laminate sides.
So
It looks Brazilian. It's a Brazilian rosewood guitar, but it's
Right.
not solid
Not
Brazilian.
solid.
So it's a tiny laminated, and you find that. And those guitars are cool. Like they say, Keith Richards used one a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Although I've never seen a picture of them, but there's one up for sale right now, or someone was going to consign one with me, and I was just looking up at prices, and someone said just like Keith Richards. But
Wow.
Keith played a Hummingbird and a J200, but maybe he had one of those guitars on
Yeah.
a session or something. But it's a cool guitar.
Yeah,
so-
it's amazing. Like what you would just never imagine that they might have been doing like years ago. Like,
Right, you
these
keep
different
finding
things.
out more stuff as there's an internet and all this information. Like when you were young, you just knew what the people you knew, or you picked up, and a lot of it wasn't even right. Like
Well, you mentioned the 330, and I mean, like one of the first art shops I had was kind of a similar experience. I had I found I think my dad found it actually. Like my dad's an antique dealer, and he. Every once in a while, I'd get to have that good fortune of him calling me like, "Hey, I found
got a
this
guitar, right?
something or other. What's this?" And he found a.
didn't you find just stereo or
He
something?
found me some couple of cool stereos. I don't even really want to talk about that, but because that's like the Macintosh that went.
They got away.
They got away. But I had it, but I didn't know what it was. I was young and foolish. But,
Yeah.
he found a Guild T100D.
Ah, I love those.
And I love that guitar. It was a great guitar, and I think it had the arm and the smaller, almost like mini humbucker type pickups, and they sound
They're like
great.
little staple pickups.
But again, it was completely hollow.
Right, when you're young,
So,
you can't play rock and roll on those things.
The usability was a little bit limited, like outside of like a quiet practice or recording
or
or
blues
something.
thing.
So all those things, like over the years, just playing some of those guitars, and like before that, I had an old Gretsch, also that my dad found somewhere that had it was like a late '50s Electromatic.
Those are cool too.
That needed.
But hard to use when you're a young kid playing rock and roll.
Yeah, it played hard.
Just don't get it. Yeah. Right, they didn't play right, and the frets were terrible and all that.
Yeah, and even then, this was when I was in college in Boston, and I took it to like a repair shop, like on I don't know, I guess it was probably like Mass Ave somewhere, but to repair that Gretsch, because I wanted to use it, and I had like a Strat at the time or something, and I was like, I was just totally captivated by the archtop guitar, form, and
it
I
just
was
looks
like,
so
wow.
cool.
And he did an okay job on it. I think
repair guys were back there and weren't what they are now.
I think the neck was the fretboard was delaminating, and at that time I was just only a player. This was pre my interest in anything to do with guitar repair or building, but those are some of the things that over the years that have added up to.
Well, that all goes to this.
Guitar, yeah.
And I think we're sort of running out of time as far as I go. So this went very quickly. So let's talk about a couple of things and wrapping up. You have a new record,
I do.
which is right here.
Yeah.
It's a record.
As a record, yes, it's vinyl. That's my project, The Rough Shapes,
And it's like, Americana music, right?
No, it's actually, well, I've heard it described as different things, but it's an instrumental project, it's a trio, and I think there's like a little bit of everything on there for people who like guitar music. It's got like a bit of a soundtrack or kind of like Morricone vibe.
But you play kind of like Merle Travis style.
I do a little bit of Travis
Atkins-y.
picking. I dabble. I'm not. There's a lot of guys that do that style really well, and
That there are.
I dabble in it, but there is a little Travis picking on this record in some places. But
And you play these guitars, I assume.
yeah, I used. It was a great experience. I ran a studio. I built a studio out of my house when I left New York, and I did that. From like 2005 to 2013, and so I had made some records there and did all kinds of random studio work, like voiceover stuff and just general like I would do housekeeping things for projects that were recorded at bigger studios, and I would need to do edits and comps and stuff, and so I lost my train of thought.
So we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
The coffee's wearing off.
Yeah, the coffee is very off, but
as far as your record goes.
As far as the record goes, oh yeah. So I'm sorry. It had been a while since I kind of went back into that zone of just playing
Music
and just being out in the process of it, because I've done a lot of different things over the years in I guess the world of music. I've been the guy, the cable monkey, on stage, and
I worked soldering cables in a recording studio.
All those things. I've huffed
very glamorous,
huffing around with a lot of gear, and I've also I've been on both sides of the glass. I've produced other things, but so I kind of look at it all as
everything you
process.
do goes into the thing you are. That's
exactly. So
why you do all that weird shit.
Yeah. So it was nice to get back to recording
to make some. Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you gotta go make some music.
So
we
true.
do this, but you got to do some playing. People who don't play. Yeah, I guess it's weird, but I mean, the bottom line with all this stuff is go play guitar.
Yeah, no, totally.
That should be our motto. Go play guitar, folks.
I like that. Mountain Cat Guitars.
Go play guitar. And then come and buy some guitars too. Because you're gonna need more guitars.
Yeah.
So to close up, if you want to know more about these guitars, of course, get in touch with Jeff or me. And MountainCatGuitars.com is my website, and your website is...
Champtone.com.
So there's symmetry there. And these guitars are dope, and if you want to come check one out, come to Suffern, New York, and play one, or go to Saratoga. And this was Mountain Cat Podcast number 1. We hope you enjoyed it. We have a couple others scheduled in the next couple weeks, and we hope to see you soon.